Hello. Um, Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. So basically, I'm here to talk about being deaf in higher education. Uh, so my name's Professor Graham Williams. I'm at Staffordshire University, and I am making this presentation for Deaf Awareness Week in 2021. So first of all, who am I and why am I here talking to you about being deaf at university? Well, basically, I've been profoundly deaf since birth. I have a profound sensory neural hearing loss in both ears, and I've attended schools for the deaf or attending partially hearing units within mainstream schools. I was a student at the University of Leeds where I received my a BSc, and I went on to do a Masters at King College London, and then I did my PhD at the University of Huddersfield. So I've been to 3 different universities as a student. So these were in the 1990s, early 2000s. I then worked at Oxford University. I then worked for the Featherstone Service. I entered academia as a lecturer at the University of Huddersfield, and I moved to Staffordshire University in 2017. I was made a professor in 2019. So I've been in academia one way or another for a large part of my adult life, both as a student and as a member of the academic staff. So I've been on sort of both sides of the fence, as it were. So I kind of feel like that maybe my observation to being deaf in academia, both as a student and a member of staff, might give me some perspective. So the first question people asked when I advise about being deaf in academia, the first one is it right for me? So I am deaf. Is the university right for me? And this was a question I asked when I was at college. So school wasn't good for me. So I never really had any confidence in my academic ability, or I didn't even think that I was smart at all. But only when I went to college that I realised, actually I had a brain, I actually had an affinity for the sciences. And it was at that point that I started thinking, could university be something I could do? And so this would be, so I went to university in 1995, so quite some time ago. And I think we're a lot more helpful these days. And so I did get mixed views on me going to university. Sometimes I think you really struggle, you really need to have your hearing and that kind of stuff. And other people says, yeah, go for it. You should be fine. So I went to university and it was a lot better than I thought. I think a lot of people probably didn't advise me very well on the Challenger, but it was a lot more helpful than I thought, and that was in the 1990s. So simply put, absolutely, yes. If you want to go to university as a deaf person, then yes, absolutely. I don't see any circumstances where I'd say to you, no, you shouldn't go to university because of your deafness. The only time where I may slightly say that is you're looking for a career that you cannot do because you're deaf. So, for example, becoming a serving police officer or wanting to join the military, and you want to go on courses with that career pathway in mind, that's probably not the best way. So my advice then is a different course rather than not university. And so I think one of the advantages why university is absolutely right is higher education institutions cater to a more diverse background than more local institutions. So if you think about the school, whether you're a sixth form school or you went to a local college, they tend to take on the local student. They don't really attract students from much wider in the area unless you're in a particularly exceptional college or a specialist college, then you might get people travelling further afield. But mostly it tends to be a local institution. With university, because a higher education institution, we get students from across the university and we get students from different countries coming to it. So this gives us a much more diverse background and all sorts of aspects. And this includes having a higher number of disabled and deaf students. So one of the things that was really quite remarkable for me when I went to university is how many deaf people there were. So that would have been an eye-opener for me. So I thought that I would be the only one there. So obviously when I was at school, there were other deaf people around because I was in special schools that had support for deaf students. When I went to college, the number of deaf students dropped off quite a bit. But when I went to university, it was suddenly a lot more. So if you're worried that if you go to university, you're going to be the only deaf person there, that is not going to be the case. There will almost certainly be others there. So if you do wish to go to university, they are generally better equipped to support you. They tend to have more funding and more support behind them than schools and colleges tend to, and so they tend to be a little bit more technology savvy as well. And so I tend to find that universities can be a little bit provide you with a bit more support than you may be used to. So all I would say is, if you're not having a good experience of being deaf and in education, at school level or college level, please don't let that hold you back in your decisions. So if I'm looking for a university to go to, I kind of want to go to a university that will cater to my deafness. And this was a question I asked when I was looking at university. I look around different ones, and I ended up choosing Leeds University, but they said they had a disability support unit. So I looked at some other universities and they didn't. So I didn't go for them. But this university did. So that kind of factored my decision. So you kind of want to look for a university that will help you out. And so what you kind of want to see is a general attitude of embracing technology and innovative learning practices. So you want a university that's proud of its teaching experience. So you may come across something called TEP, and so they have gold TEP, silver TEP, or bronze TEP. And that's a teaching excellence framework. So it's all about how good that university is in terms of teaching. And the big factor of that is how inclusive it is, and how open it can be, and widening participation and that kind of thing. So you really wanted the university to gold TEP rating, and they're the ones who have demonstrated they're very inclusive in their teaching practices, and that they use innovative technologies. So you kind of want to look at the university that's quite proud of embracing technology and quite proud of its pedagogic practices or its learning practices, and it's got diversities and things like that. Another thing you want to look at is how visible are their disability services. So you should have open days, and so if you attend open days, it's how prominent are their disability services. There's no reference to them whatsoever, and you have to ask what disability services you are, and you'll just refer to their website. That's probably not a very helpful attitude. So what you kind of want is the disability services stand, where you can actually go and ask them, what support do you provide me as a deaf student? And they can have a conversation with you about that. And then you can ask questions about that kind of thing. So if you're struggling to access the disability services while they're trying to recruit you, and then that's probably not a good sign for how it's going to be like when you actually start. So I think visibility of the disability service is quite an important one. Another thing about open and flexible staff. So when you attend open days or you're in correspondence with the university, how are the staff with you? If they're constantly asking you to ring phone numbers and you're constantly having to say to them, I can't use the phone because I'm deaf, and things like that, and then that's something to bear in mind. But if they say to you, oh yeah, just drop me an email and I'm happy to get back to you, or anything like that, or if you prefer, we can message, things like that. So they immediately accept that you can't use your phone and take that forward, and that's great. So I have encountered people who've where they've said, okay, I can't use your number. Can I email you again? I'm going to have to find out what I can do. And suddenly that kind of thing, they've not kind of accepted the idea that somebody might be deaf. So that kind of approach is quite important to consider. And then it's alternative method of communication offered rather than phone numbers. So sometimes it's helpful just to list a load of phone numbers, but you turn around and say, well, I'm deaf, I can't use a phone. And they go, oh, right. And they start saying things, well, can you get somebody else to ring for you? And so, no, that's not really appropriate, is it? I have to admit, I don't know any universities that don't offer email alternatives to phone numbers. Universities tend to communicate primarily by email. That's quite good. Another thing to consider is their websites. Look at their website. Look at their social media. When they post videos and things like that, are they subtitled? If not, why not? It's not that difficult to subtitle videos in this day and age. You can even do them automatically. I'm doing it now. I hope it's working and going to come through. but I'm doing it now. So is the technology there and easy to use? Why aren't they doing it? Okay, so what's the issue there? So I think it says something about that attitude. That's what we want to look for in a university. Okay, so another question I've had from deaf applicants and deaf students is, are some courses better than others for deaf people? And I'll be truthful and honest, yes they are. So some courses are going to be really, really difficult for deaf people to do, and other courses will be much easier. I'm not going to comment on which courses are easier and which courses are more difficult, because at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter. So if you want to do a particular career in that particular area, and then you do that, and then it's down to you and the university to come up with a plan to help you achieve your career goals. So what the primary factor should affect your choice of course you intend to do is what you intend to do afterwards. So what is your career? What do you want to do? And then that is your primary choice. And then it's talking about, right, okay, I want to do this, but I'm deaf. How can I ensure that I get everything I need from the university and the course to go on to my career? And then one of the things you may come across is career advisor. Now, I think one thing I would say to you, career advice is just that, advice. So advisors may not know your full circumstances. So when I was at school, one of my big ambitions was to become a medical doctor. And it's something I really wanted to do, and I was really interested in the medical side of things. And everybody said to me, you can't do it, you're deaf. Like, oh, right, okay. I was always quite pragmatic about things like that. So initially, I did want to be a police officer. And it's very clear that in order to be a police officer, I needed to have hearing. So, okay, fair enough, I can't be a police officer. Okay, I'd like to be a medical doctor. Oh, you can't do that either. Well, why not? Because you have to talk to people, you have to use stethoscope, things like that. But there's nothing actually down in the process that says that can't become. It's not written down anywhere that you cannot become a medical doctor if you are deaf. There is with the police force because you have a minimum hearing requirement, but there isn't anything like that for a medical doctor. And it's literally everyone told me, and all the careers advisor told me, you can't become a medical doctor. And so, okay, fair enough. I went to university and I did a course in physiology. My first 2 years of physiology was shared with medical students studying medicine at Leeds University. There were deaf people on that course. There's at least 2 people on that course in different years who were deaf. I was really annoyed because I was ill-advised. So what I wanted then at that point was someone said to me, you want to become a medical doctor? Go for it. Do your best, try and get it. If you don't get it, fair enough. But if you try, that's what you need to do. So it might be I would never have got onto the course. Might be just I might not get the grade, but I'll never know because I'll never try because I gave up. Because everyone told me I can't do it. So what I would say to you, think about the career you want to do and go for it. Okay, and just remember, career advice is just that, advice. You don't have to follow it. And just go ahead. Okay, so you apply to university, you pick your university, you're on your course, you're now at university. How can the university help you? And the first thing I absolutely say to you is let them know. Okay? Be open about your disability if you're comfortable in doing so. I've always been open about my deafness. So if someone, obviously we've got the whole pandemic thing at the moment, so everyone's wearing face masks. Don't said something to me. The first thing I would say, I'm sorry, I need to lip read, I'm deaf, can you please lower your mask? I would say that. And I'll say it to them. Sometimes if somebody's talking and not looking at me and I need to lip read, I say, oh, excuse me, can I read your lip? Because I'm deaf and I need to lip read. I'm open about that and it helps so much. Now, obviously, some people are not comfortable about saying that, and that's up to you. But what I will say would make your life so much easier if you can just sort of say, look, I'm deaf. I need you to do this in order for me to understand you. Okay? And that applies to university. We can only help you if we know. If we don't know that you're deaf, how can we give you the support that you need? So what I'll do is go to Disability Services, your university, and tell them I am deaf. What they do an assessment. and what support can be provided. So what they probably do is ask for a copy of your hearing test or something like that. In different universities have different approaches, but once you have an idea of how deaf you are, what the nature of your deafness, they might just take you on what you tell them, or they might ask for a record, a copy of an audiogram, or they might ask you to go and have a formal hearing test. But it varies from different universities. But what they do is, right, well, what we can offer you is this, and they might say, well, we can pay for sign language interpreter to attend every lecture. We can pay for a note taker to attend every lecture, or we can provide you with a laptop with transcription software installed upon it. We can ask the lecturer to ensure that all their lectures are recorded and with subtitles. And there could be all sorts of things. It all depends on how deaf you are and the nature of your deafness and what support. So I was born deaf, I'm profoundly deaf, but I don't do sign language. So having a BSL interpreter will not do me any good whatsoever. Having a note taker would be brilliant. It's that kind of thing, really. But other people, a BSL interpreter is just exactly what they need. Okay. So it's all about you having that conversation with your university, say, this is my disability. What can we do to ensure that I achieve the best grade I can get and graduate? So that's how the university can help you. Now, how can you help yourself? It's embrace technology. So using emails, there's all sorts of technologies you can use now. You can even make phone calls using Type Talk and the text relay apps. And you can just go to a text relay service. It's just free. You can do it on the smartphone. The number of live transcription apps. I quite regularly use Live Transcribe by Google, for example, and it's free. That's free. And you go on. You can get more professional, high-performance ones if you pay a bit. And it's something that your university might pay for you if you had that discussion with them. You can get small cameras or use a smartphone to video record lectures. Unless your university has a lecture capture system in place. So basically where they record their lectures and then you can access it afterwards. And you can get them transcribed. So you can either find a transcription service yourself or pay for a university, or the university will pay for you to get them transcribed for you. And probably the best thing that you can do to help yourself is go to the lecturers, ask them for help. Okay, they'll be more than happy to do so. Every university I've been to, I've worked at, and I've been as a student, if you just go to the lecturer and just said, look, I'm struggling, I didn't quite get what you got about this, could you please explain it to me? I can't think of any lecturer who would refuse to do that. The help might not be as great as you might want, and other people will give you amazing help, but no one will ever say, no, tough. If you didn't hear me, that's your problem, nothing to do with me. No one will ever say that. Largely because if they did, they'd probably end up losing their job, because that was blatant discrimination. But lecturers are here to help you. That's our job. So you don't come to us and say, look, I'm struggling, can I have some help? We can't help you. So go to the lecturers, ask them for help, we're more than happy to do so. Okay, and that's the thing. So you can help yourself. So the university can help you, but you can help yourself as well. So what are the good things about the university and being deaf? There's far more accepting of deafness on a professional level. So this means, and what I mean by that is, if you're after a particular career, we can link you with that career better than your school can, because it's a higher education institution. We have a closer connection to that vocation, because typically the next stage after graduating is a job. So we have very strong links with employers to ensure that we're teaching you what they want. And because they're then in a position to say, well, actually, this would be a really good job for you. You might struggle with this particular route, because that involves making phone calls all day, every day, but this route might be better. And so we can help advise you better, taking your consideration as someone who's deaf. And so that means that you get more relevant advice on careers considering your deafness. At university, email is generally the primary correspondent, and very little phone calls happen. If you're happy making a phone call and you want to ring him, you can do so, but primarily emails. Most universities have a turnaround time of email of like 2 days, 3 days, and so on. So email, and so it's all very visual, and so it's great for deaf people. Universities are encouraged and indeed awarded and recognised in being innovative in their teaching practices, and particularly teaching practices that embrace inclusivity. So there are some lecturers who, upon finding out they've got a deaf student in their classes, will make changes because they want to. They would see this as an opportunity for them to develop their teaching practices. So we tend to find you get a very positive experience relating to deafness. But what kind of discrimination might I encounter at universities? I'd say it's highly unlikely you'll encounter direct discrimination. I have never, with a couple of exceptions when I was a student, from other students in the 1990s, have encountered direct discrimination. Okay. If you do encounter direct discrimination, then this needs to be reported and challenged. And student union can help with this. So you need to go and report that. And these can be along the lines of, while you're on this course, you're deaf, you can't do this. That kind of thing is direct discrimination. Other comments can be, oh God, there's a deaf person on my course. Does that mean a deaf person can do my job? That is a comment I've had directed at me back in the 1990s from somebody else on the course, which is completely unacceptable. So in both cases, I reported it and the student got into trouble. And so behaviour like that needs to be challenged, and you need to do so. What I find the most common discrimination is generally around lack of awareness. And it's people not knowing how to handle the deafness. And so you can help them by letting them know what you need and educate them. So, so one of the things I've had trouble with in the past with video calls. So if you're doing a Teams meeting or video conference over Skype, I really struggled with that because the resolution of the images was quite poor. It was very difficult to lip read and there was no text. But when we went into lockdown, the quality of Microsoft Teams and things like Zoom improved massively. And it actually made it easier for me. And then they started introducing auto captions, and then suddenly I was having Teams meetings left, right, and centre. And I think that one of the things that happened is I had to tell the university, can you turn on the captions function on Teams? And then, oh right, the team do that. That's brilliant. Yeah, we'll get it turned on at an institutional level. So what I did, I told them, and they made that change. So if I hadn't told them or nobody said anything, they might not have made that change. But because I told them, they made that change. And the same thing with videos. So both this university and my previous university started putting videos on social media on their website, and they weren't captioned. So I told them, can I have captions on this so deaf people can see this as well? And they said, oh yes, of course, yes. Oh, we didn't even realise. And boom, nothing, you know. It's all every now and then there's a bit something gets posted without subtitles. I just remind them, and they're always happy to do it. So generally, a lack of awareness or not realising that that's an issue. So you need to let them know, educate them. Okay, so don't just let it happen. Don't just go, oh God, there's no subtitles on this video. Great, I'm just tell them. No, you tell them. They'll probably just most responses. Oh God, yes, you're right. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Look, I've got the subtitles straight away. I'm really sorry about that. And I'll do this next time. And most people, when they realise, will change and adapt it. You just need to let them know. So sometimes it's just about reminding them. You don't need to make a complaint. I mean, you do have that complaint process. So they're continually not doing it, then you've got the right to complain. But in the first instance, just tell them, do I get any subtitles with this? Oh God, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, turn that on. Sometimes you may feel that you're being awkward. Oh God, I know, I'm always saying about the videos and all of that kind of stuff. But you're not the one being awkward, it's them who's being awkward. You just need to remind them. You shouldn't have to. But I think at the end of the day, they're not, I tend to find they're not deliberately setting out to put you inconvenience you, they generally just simply forgot or didn't realise. They just need to give them a gentle reminder and they'll do it. Now that tends to be the kind of discrimination that I encountered. People just forget that I need to do this, and people forget I need to do that. So quite often, like Microsoft Teams, people would talk, but they would have the camera turned off. And said, well, actually, I need to lip read. I'd like to see who's talking. They've really got a big Teams meeting, but lots of people turn their cameras off because it clogged up the bandwidth. But if you're talking, please turn the camera on so we can lip read. Sometimes people forget. And again, there's nothing malicious about it. There's nothing, no one saying, oh, I don't want Graham to know about this, so I'm not going to turn the camera on. There's none of that at all. It's just, right, yeah, sorry, Graham, of course, yeah, turn it on. And just reminding them. So what I will say is that everyone seems to have different experiences of being deaf at university, and there's many tales to be found online. So I've got 3 links here, so from different perspectives. The stories are fairly similar. Typical things like commented, oh, you don't look deaf. Oh, well, if you've got hearing aid, then your hearing should be okay. And things like that. And it's, well, again, it's just lack of awareness stuff. So there's nothing really where there's obvious discrimination. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it does. But typically at university, that's not, I've never encountered it myself. It's always been the lack of awareness thing, the lack of understanding thing, and I think it can be resolved, but just letting people know. Just let people know, and that seems to help a lot. So I've got some links here. They've got the National Deaf Children's Society. They do information for getting young people into university. And they've got some help about what support you can get. And then there's hearing link. It's got some link to funding for access to education. So if university is something that you really want to do, go for it. Look on the UCAS website, look what courses they've got, look on these links here, and look at the university that you want to go to. Look at their website, look at what they've got. And if you're in university already, have a look and they can help you. So for example, the Access to Education Fund can release some funds for you, so you can get you things to add to your hearing aid, such as Roger pens and so on, and they can allow you to give you funds to buy equipment to help you. And it might not help you, but at least you can go and have a good look and see what there is and have some options. Okay, so that's come to the end of my top tip. I hope some of you find it kind of useful. So if any of you interested in pursuing a university route, I'm really hoping that this encourages you to chase this up. Okay, so on that note, I will leave you, and thank you very much for listening and staying through to the end. Okay, bye bye.